DAOs are incredible because they incentivize human collaboration in ways that we've never seen before. So by being in a structure where you have committed your capital, committed your time, doesn't always have to be money-based, but it bonds you together with another group of people.
Hello, Newforum Community. We're excited to bring you a brilliant and inspiring founder on our podcast today.
Dani Loftus is the founder at This Outfit Does Not Exist and also the founder and CEO of a new platform called DRAUP. She's highly known within the space for pioneering digital fashion with her digital outfits, and we are thrilled to be talking with Dani about why digital fashion is important right now, what are the current barriers of adoption, and what is needed most within the industry to move forward.
And we are powered by Newforum Foundation, focused on fostering the expansion of decentralized social applications, also known as Social 3.0, by forming an ecosystem and a community of visionaries, creators, and investors to spark conversations on the topics of crypto, the metaverse, NFT, and everything Web3.
Hey, Dani, we're super happy to have you on today's episode.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you for such a lovely introduction.
So I can't wait to hear your story, because I know that you really are one of the pioneers, I would say, of digital fashion. And I'm wondering, how did you come up with This Outfit Does Not Exist? And also, what is your story?
So it's a really funny story, actually. So I grew up absolutely loving fashion. I used to watch videos of Thierry Mugler shows or Alexander Mcqueen. And until I was about 16 or 17 years old, I really thought that I was going to work in fashion. And then I just remember sitting at home when I was 17 or so and about to graduate high school. And I had this big existential crisis. And I was like, the fashion industry, which was at one point hyper creative and very mission driven, for me had become hyper, consumer focused. And I was like, actually, this isn't the ethos that I want to support. And so I did this big pivot and I moved into the social impact ecosystem. So my first job ever was at an impact fund in New York. And then from there, I got asked by one of the advisors to join his startup, which was in DeFi. And so this was DeFi in 2018. It was the ICO boom. And I was working for a lending marketplace, which was helping those who didn't have banks and those who were financially underserved, mainly in India, to get loans by putting them on chain. So you could see the relationship between the lenders and the borrowers, and you could really see these people are valid for finance. And so, came in knowing nothing, built that with him for a year and a half, and then was moving back to the UK and really wanted to get a job in venture. And so ended up working for this phenomenal company called Founders Forum, which is an innovation consultancy. And so my job would really be going into large corporates, everyone from energy companies to media companies to fashion companies, and saying, here is how emerging technology is going to disrupt your industry, and here's how you should respond. So what startups do you partner with? How do you invest your money? And so that was always one side of my life. And the other side was the love of fashion had never gone away. Even though I didn't think I was going to work in it, all of my friends were in fashion. I have always been obsessed with very, very avant-garde clothes. And so it was always my passion. And so it was peak pandemic. And I think, as with a lot of us, we were sitting in our houses. I've also always loved to write. I used to write sci-fi. And I read this article where the CMO of Gucci said, we're going to start creating clothes to be produced digitally in the next few years. And just something clicked in my head. I was like, we have this creator economy. Obviously, the rise of gaming skins is something I followed very closely. And I was like, this makes so much sense. We can democratize access to the creator economy and make it more exciting through digital fashion. And so went onto the internet, searched digital fashion, thought I would see 100 Instagram accounts. I thought I'd see hundreds of articles, and there was almost nothing. I was like, really? There really isn't anything? And I was like, you know what? I am going to start a Substack where I write 5,000 word essays on why this technology is so disruptive and how companies should respond in the same way that I do with my job. But then it's an aesthetic medium, so I'll bring it to life through images. So when the account started, all of the images were linked back to a newsletter. So there'd be one on digital design, for example, and every single thing I wore would be designed differently. You could see it in the captions, and it would be in the newsletter body of text. And so that's how it really started. At the same time, I was pitching news outlets like, Bloomberg, Wired, etc. And they would respond being like, what large brands are in this? And I was like, no one at the moment, but soon everyone will be. And they were like, we don't really get it. This isn't really for us. And so that was in January. And then by the time March hit, the digital asset boom happened. And what began as my side hustle became something that the whole world started to care about. And so I had 10 months or so where I was working at my former job, as a consultant, and waking up at 4 o'clock every morning to do this outfit does not exist. And then it got to a point where I was like, and I think a lot of us, especially the creators in Web3, had this big formative moment where you sit there and you go, maybe this is a real job. Like, maybe this isn't my hobby. Maybe this isn't too far-fetched or too fun. And that's how I ended up, doing this full time and, building DRAUP and becoming an investor in the ecosystem.
That's a fascinating story, very rich background. And it looks like you've sort of brought it all together and, you're really like making an impact in the Web3 space. And I can't help but notice your profile picture on your LinkedIn. You have this gorgeous gown on. And I'm curious to hear about it.
So this is one of my absolute favorite outfits that I've ever worn. And it's a really funny thing because it also is one of the first photos of mine that ever went slightly viral. And one of my big proof points and one of the big things that I would say in terms of convincing people, especially in the creator economy, to wear digital fashion is look at the traction you can get. It can be sustainable and it can also make you more interesting as a creator. So, that dress, for example, I think when I posted it, I had like 4,000 followers, not a lot. And it got picked up by Dazed and Confused and it got shared with 1 million people. And I have, other photos from the same designer that have had 400,000 views, despite the fact I have like 11 or 12,000 followers. And so that's like a big sell for the creator economy. And, that dress is designed by Tribute Brand, who were one of the OG pioneers in the space. The founder, Gala, is unbelievably talented. I have this very strong connection to Tribute because it was their Instagram and their fashion that first made me go, okay, I need to be in this industry. And so I think something that I've realized as a creator is what my followers really like is juxtaposition. So you wear a crazy digital fashion outfit that combines incredible render quality, so it looks realistic on my body, with really high quality, unusual use of materials, classic silhouettes, but with a little bit of a twist. And then you put it into a setting where you would never normally be wearing the outfit. And that's like the fast track, like key to success in kind of my genre of work specifically. So, with that, I saw this dress and I was like, wow, this looks exactly like Fairy Liquid or Flubber. And so then I came up with the idea of doing the washing up with the Fairy Liquid bottle in the dress. And yeah, it's one of my favorites and it's become my token, this outfit does not exist image.
Digital fashion, it's definitely like, I'd say in a way disrupt some of the concepts from the conventional, traditional, fashion world. And so I'm curious to know, like, what do you think is the current state of it? Like, what is happening with it? Like, is it really here to stay? Is it going to be mass adopted? Like, is there going to be a mass adoption? And what are some of the barriers that could prevent that from happening? That's
a really brilliant question, Salimi, and I'm going to answer it for you in 3 parts. So first of all, I think just to situate digital fashion in general, the way that I see it, digital fashion falls into 3 categories. So there is the first category, which I call IRL, in real life digital fashion. And it's a little bit of an oxymoron, but basically what it means is it's physical clothes produced with a digital backend. So, Adidas has been implementing this since 2012. Burberry recently started also in terms of their pattern making. And a lot of designers were pushed into this mode when COVID happened. The idea is that fashion is this incredibly artisanal craft, and traditionally all the creators have had to be in the same room to make it. And then you were forced into this state of emergency where you all of a sudden had to get things online. So there were a couple of people who preempted this shift. So PVH, which owns Tommy Hilfiger, for example, took 3 years to digitize their collections, like I think as of 2018. So they were pretty ahead of the curve. But for a lot of the other companies, it was a big shock. What is so important about digitizing design is not only, if there's a panic moment like COVID, that you can still maintain business operations, but also from a sustainability perspective, you have a far more efficient use of materials, also an ability to trend forecast, an ability to transition to made to order, where garments aren't produced physically until there's actually demand. And obviously the fashion industry has 10% of the world's carbon emissions. So anything that can be reduced to improve that is very important. And then also from a cost perspective. So the fact you don't need to ship things across the world, the fact that, again, things don't need to be produced when they're not bought. And looking to the future, I see every single brand adopting these practices. In that way, every single designer will have to be trained in both digital and physical means. And a lot of things will be done through the computer. So that's the kind of most basic category, which is IRL. And I think it's not a massive mental shift from clothes today. It's just a more efficient way of producing them. The second category is what I call ORL, on real life. And that's the stuff that I came into the industry for originally. So it's digital clothes worn on human beings. And in terms of this, it spans renders, which is what I'm wearing, for example, in terms of the green dress, where the brand will render it onto you. So the process is you buying the item, you send a photo of yourself to the brand, they render it onto you, get a photo back. Also, there are being these incredible advances in AR, both through incumbents like Snapchat, who have really invested in body tracking, but also through younger companies like 010, who are a phenomenal company. Tribute's also developing their own AR. And so that also is considered ORL digital fashion. In terms of that, I see it as a very interesting thing, because I think the easiest way that it holds value is as a B2B business proposition. And what I mean by that is businesses like these digital fashion companies like Tribute brand selling to other people who revenue generate from clothes. That could be me, with an Instagram who wants to attract attention, who wants to get a presence. It could also be a magazine. So instead of having a stylist carrying around a bag of physical clothes, you actually can have it all done post-production, which makes it more efficient. But the issue that we kind of have at the moment is that for the digital creators, this is artisan work, and the process of rendering or creating an AR filter takes a really long time. And so the pricing ends up being at, let's say, €100 plus. For the average consumer, that is not going to make you say, okay, I want a digital dress, when you could go to Primark or go to fast fashion and get one for much less of the price. On the flip side, obviously, is the fact that you want to fairly reimburse creators. So I think the idea of ORL is something that will take slightly longer to adopt. I think it will begin as something that's very valuable for the creator economy, but maybe slightly more experimental for the consumer, and maybe it drives attention towards physical items. So Shopify integrated AR and reduced returns by 90%, for example. The final category is URL, which is unreal life fashion. So this is digital fashion, which is for a virtual person, and it is also virtual. And this is what I see being the most disruptive and also the largest market going forward. You can already see it in games. So the skins market in games is currently at $40 billion, which really shows the new ways that people are excited to engage with fashion. I think what's going to change is that we're already seeing a shift in the gaming industry from gaming being challenge-based. So, you go into World of Warcraft and it's based on specific challenges or specific quests, to it being much more of a social experience. So we've seen transitions like Fortnite going into creative mode, where you can't get shot at and actually you interact with friends. You've also seen Meta say that they are going to become an avatar-based company. And with that shift, it's going to shift to each individual person having their own avatar. And also, I think we're going to see a very interesting shift where what that avatar is. It could be, for example, a picture for profile. So we've seen the Bored Ape Yacht Club craze, and then Gucci did a collaboration where they dressed the Bored Apes. So I think what we're going to see as things evolve is the real expansion of the direct-to-avatar economy, and an evolution to a place where we all have our own avatars, and we also have a variety of different identities that we want to dress. And that's this kind of third category of digital fashion that is starting to take form, will take form more widely over the next 5 years, and will become the most prevalent.
I think that's so interesting. And I also know that you're part of a very well-known DAO, that is Red DAO, who really are, also been at the forefront of digital fashion. And I'm wondering, what has been your DAO experience, and What do you think DAOs can make possible for people?
DAOs are incredible because they incentivize human collaboration in ways that we've never seen before. So by being in a structure where you have committed your capital, committed your time, doesn't always have to be money-based, but it bonds you together with another group of people with a shared incentive structure and brings it all on chain. And so I think what DAOs facilitate is leveraging communities to action and leveraging a hive mind in ways that we've never seen before in the entire history of humanity, essentially. And the DAO that I'm in specifically is set up by a phenomenal organization called Tribute Labs, who are the leaders in DAO tooling. So they have Flamingo DAO, which is the biggest digital art DAO, and out of that, they've now spun a lot of different DAOs concerning different verticals. So they have Neon, which is a gaming and metaverse focused DAO. They have us, which is Red DAO. They've just developed a deep science DAO, one specifically focused on female communities. And with Red DAO in particular, our remit is digital fashion. And what's amazing is people always ask, okay, what do you do as a DAO? Obviously, we invest. So we have a pool of capital where we're putting money into buying digital fashion NFTs. We're also supporting digital fashion projects in the way of a venture arm. But more interestingly, we can actually just do anything we want in the ecosystem as long as it's voted on. So, we had a vote recently about creating our own proprietary avatar. We'll sponsor events. We'll do stuff to do with education. We, at some point, may roll out our own collections through the DAO. It's all this idea of incentivizing people to come together and form a collective mind and act in a way that is collectively inspired. And I think that's what's so truly exciting.
Whenever we, at least in the space, whenever we talk about digital fashion, everyone thinks about the metaverse, right? And so what are your thoughts on it, and how have you incorporated that in your work, or what's the future? How do you perceive all of that panning out?
So that's a really brilliant question. I think, first of all, it's important to just define the word metaverse. I recently wrote a whole article, 5,000 words, on kind of the metaverse, where I see digital fashion within it. And, the first grounding principle is, what is it? Everybody has a ton of different definitions. And I think you really need to start by deciding on how you perceive it. And there are a couple of people like Matthew Ball, who I really look to understand the trajectory and what it is. And I'm definitely oversimplifying it, but essentially what Matt Ball says is that the metaverse is a persistent virtual overlay to our physical world. And it never pauses, it doesn't stop, it's in real time. And it's a very interesting thing because the metaverse is in a lot of ways quite comparable to the internet. And what I mean by that is the internet, for example, is comprised of websites, it's comprised of technologies. And yet you would not say, this website is the internet, or this technology is the internet. It's everything as a whole. And I think it's a very similar thing with the metaverse. The metaverse will be comprised of numerous virtual experiences, numerous virtual worlds, arguably unlimited virtual experiences and virtual worlds, and also numerous underlying technologies. And the advancement of the metaverse is contingent on all of these little individual parts coming together, and it will therefore come about over 20, 30 years. That being said, I think where we are right now is we're starting to, as human beings, become more comfortable with an idea of physical digital synthesis. So it's something, that we were talking about earlier, the idea of people already starting to engage through games and media forms in direct avatar economies, or people feeling comfortable through social media, which has over 4 billion users, portraying a virtual version of themselves to people in their lives. And I think that's a sociological shift that's slowly going to lead us to be more comfortable in working, experiencing culture, social interaction in virtual spaces. And then I think the technological underpinnings, it's everything from the speed of internet that we need in order for there not to be a lag in digital fashion when you're changing clothes. Imagine if you were wearing just a bra and underwear and you're trying to wear digital fashion in a meeting and there's a time lag and you're naked, that just completely invalidates the user experience. And so I think we're very slowly progressing in terms of the technology, but we're very quickly progressing in terms of the mindset. And that's what I think is very exciting. And I think this idea of utility is a very interesting one. And Joyce and I were discussing it earlier. One of the things I'd say around digital fashion is, I think utility takes on different meanings. Utility means how useful is it to the person who owns it. But I think people can own digital fashion for a lot of different reasons. So, you see it in the NFT space. Some people own artworks because they want to own artworks for display, but some people own them because they want to make money. That's different utilities. In the same way, there might be access to earn, where digital fashion allows you to access specific locations in the digital world. That would be an entirely new form of utility. So I think rather than just, this is an item of clothing that I'm going to wear, we're going to see all of these different ways of experiencing and garnering value from digital only items. And with that whole use of applications and experiences based around that.
I think there's going to be many more use cases. Like, think about the concept of an online store. I think that interaction can be like so much better. And there's so many examples of people showing off their fashion NFTs right now for being part of a community. And I think you totally explained it well, that there's these different use cases, but the technology has still some way to go, I think.
Agreed.
And I wanted to ask your opinion, like, what is this concept of identity in the metaverse?
It's something that I think about a lot, because, fashion is essentially in the business of identity. You wear clothes to express who you are to other people, to express the communities you want to be affiliated with, to show status within those communities. And I think this idea of identity in the metaverse, first of all, is evolving, and it's going to be different for every single person. And also in the same way as, let's say, something like TikTok, which was an entirely new video format. It's something that will be both decided by users and also by their applications. So TikTok trends, for example, the first time you watch them, you're like, what on earth is this? And then you watch enough where you understand how you would participate and what that media form is. Same thing with identity. So there'll be these influencers in what identity means. So that could mean influencers with 10 identities, and people then become comfortable having 10 identities. Influencers with an identity that mimics their identity in the physical world. And we'll start to get this language around identity and start getting these words in that language that people can use in terms of how they self-express. I think one of the most interesting things is this idea of what represents you in a virtual space. So because I'm Gen Z / millennial, and at the moment, probably not as digitally native as I would like, when I go into the virtual space, I always have, or usually have, red hair, because I have it in the real world. It's quite an identifying quality. But what's going to be really interesting is what becomes your identifier. It could be a personality trait. It could be a way you self-express that maybe you never thought of in the physical world. And I think it's really going to lead us to reckon in entirely new ways with who we are, how we self-express, and also how we own that information. We currently are in a system where we have a whole issue with big data. We have an issue with Facebook. We have an issue with these social media sites. And by being on chain, you can both have a combination between anonymity and ownership over your identity. And I think that's also going to evolve in very, very interesting ways.
Yeah, very, very well said. I think that you touched on so many great points. And I'm also wondering, Dani, what are some of your most exciting projects that you're working on right now and that you're things that you're looking forward to in the future?
So the thing that I'm most excited about is I'm launching my new platform, DRAUP. So we have just closed a fundraise from some really incredible people. And essentially what DRAUP is a platform which is maximizing the value of digital fashion for its creators and consumers through really pushing the boundaries of creativity, aesthetics, technology, and finance simultaneously. So all of the stuff that I said around this idea of utility and how it means different things to different people, trying to cater to that and bring that into digital fashion. And I think what it really came from for me was the fact, first of all, that we're starting to see this digital medium which has a powerful story, but I want to see it even more. I don't want tech to be used as a gimmick. I want it to be used to add value and enhance the story of the garments in the way that we see with digital art. The second thing that was super important was this idea of financialization. I think, as a lot of us know, we exist in a crypto bro dominated NFT community. And this, for me, makes me very upset because it mimics the systems of financial inequality that we've had being pervasive for decades. So there's all of these ideas that crypto and the metaverse are going to diversify who can participate and who can benefit. But in reality, if things don't change, they're just going to reproduce existing systems of bias. And this is because you need a certain type of education to feel comfortable participating in the crypto world. You also need a degree of finance and financial literacy that you don't have in general in the physical world if you are from a group that's traditionally disadvantaged, aka not being, a white male. And so one of the things that I really want to do is use fashion as this on-ramp. So it's this idea that digital fashion, because it's coming from a traditionally female medium, 72% of creators in fashion are women, for example, and because of the way that culture has evolved, we're constantly plied with the lexicon around digital fashion and really having it understood around, the fashion industry. If we can build it into digital and then create garments that can enable people to be financially empowered through resale, but also through rental, through where to earn, that can also be this really powerful way to get more women into the metaverse and ensure that people benefit from it. So that's like the second pillar. And so I am launching my community around that at the beginning of July. And if anybody wants to be involved, I would love for them to follow the Twitter, which is pronounced DRAUP, DROP. So PRONOUCED, DRP. Or they can follow me on Twitter at Dani Does Not Exist. And that's going to be kicking off in July with actually our platform launching hopefully at the end of Q4 of this year. And that's going to be selling these very creative garments and also allowing people to interact with them in a variety of ways.
Sounds really exciting, and I'm pretty sure everyone is gonna follow you. At least I'm excited about your projects, about DRAUP, and I want to say thank you so much, Dani. I mean, this was really great. Thank you for all the insightful points and perspectives that you brought to the conversation about digital fashion and the metaverse. And thank you. And thank you all for being part of today's firm. If you want to get more involved in our community, make sure to follow us on our social platforms. IG is newcoin.nco and our website is newcoin.org. We also have a Discord and a Telegram group, and we will have all the links in the description below, as well as Dani's links as well. And we will see you in the next episode. Thank you, Joy. Thank you, Dani. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.